Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the MSTC Limited Q4 FY21 earnings conference call hosted by Equirus Securities. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Deepesh Kashyap from Equirus Securities. Thank you and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Malika. Hello everyone. On behalf of Equirus Securities, I welcome you all to 4Q FY21 earnings conference call of MSTC. From the management, we have with us Ms. Banu Kumar, Director Commercial, Mr. Subrata Sarkar, Director Finance, and Mr. Ajay Kumar Rai, Company Secretary. We will begin the call with an opening remarks from the management and then we can open the line for Q&A. I will now hand over the call to Ms. Banu Kumar for her opening remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning to all of you. Year bygone was really a very tough year in terms of business, personal and operational matters. But I'm really happy to note that the results have actually been very promising, and we have witnessed some of good growth which was not envisaged even during the mid-year. Now some of the major achievements that we could carry out in the last year, especially in terms of business, is we ventured into a new project for the Rajasthan government for allotment of liquor licenses. As you all know that MSTC has been a pioneer in offering customized e-commerce solutions for our clients. So opening this basket to other sectors, now this is one new challenge that we faced, and we had to do this in record time of 15 days only. And there were about 7,500 shops that were to be offered on license. So this was done in record time, and the results were there for everybody to see. The Rajasthan government is extremely happy with the results, and the earnings, the figures that you can see, 11,227 crores, 77 crores from these auctions to the government of Rajasthan, has actually paved way for us for approaching other state governments to adopt this model for liquor licensing. Now another major area into last year was selection of an agency for operations in the Andhra Pradesh government. Sand has always been kind of an area which not many people wanted to touch because of the inherent culture that is there. Now Andhra Pradesh government decided that they will adopt an e-commerce platform for selection of such an agency who can actually render the services in a very transparent way. So MSTC was the obvious choice for this, and we again did an enter. Here our role was not just limited to giving the platform services. We were more like a transaction advisor right from the bid document to MOU to final agreement. Everything was done by MSTC, so that has actually given us a new hope that our role can be a little more than the normal e-commerce platform or software service provider role that we have been doing for such a long time. So this experience will definitely pave way for us for our future ventures in this area. Then, as you all know, the coal block which was opened up for commercial mining, they have been put up for auctions. The second tranche was also conducted, and now there are about 67 mines that have been put up for auction in this year also, out of which the various stages are going on. Some are first level, e-tender process is there, and this is likely to be completed by about September or so. Then properties is another area where MSTC has brought in a very strong foothold. Last year, if I recall correctly, I had the IBA portal where we have given a very robust integrated platform for sale of all the NPAs of all the nationalized banks, about 40 banks or so. And now this year, in fact, most of the volumes and e-commerce, the e-sale figures that you can see are basically from the sale of such properties. Though the performance in that sector is just, as expected, we are now in the process of taking it to the next level. And based on this success, we have also offered our services to, the custodian of any properties in India under the Ministry of Home Affairs. So they also have, and they have entrusted us this job. Apart from this, DIPAM is also in the process of selling a lot of properties of the PSUs and government sector, for which we are preparing another customized portal. Now, apart from that, you all know that the spectrum auctions were conducted in March, and it was done for the first time by MSTC. This was actually a major challenge in respect of software development, but to the satisfaction of all agencies, this was done in a very, very smooth manner, and it was lauded by all concerned, including DOT and the entire cabinet and the government of India as a whole. Now, these were some of the few highlights that actually translated to such a good e-commerce performance. Trading, as we have been promising earlier also, we are tapering it down. So, some of the revenue degrowth that you can see is basically because we have taken a conscious decision of not doing much volumes in the trading segment because of our past experiences. Now, with these opening remarks, I'll hand over this to my colleague, Mr. Subrata Sarkar, Director of Finance, to explain to you the financials, and thereafter we'll be ready to take your questions. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to everybody. So, as highlighted by our Director Commercial, it was a very robust performance driven by the e-commerce growth. So let me go to the figures. So the company has crossed this volume of 1289.86 billion in terms of value of goods transacted through its marketing and e-commerce verticals, which is around 1.25% growth over the value of goods traded in the same period, that is financial year 20. Growth in the value of goods transacted through e-commerce vertical was higher by 2%. Revenue, so far revenue is concerned, consolidated revenues were 7805.66 million in FY21, vis-a-vis revenue of 12313.99 million in FY20, decline of 36.2, largely driven by the growth in the marketing business. PBT is around 1358.84 million in FY21, vis-a-vis INR 1667.43 in FY20. Now let us go to the detailed results. Standalone financials, FY 2021 versus FY 1920. Total revenue stood at this year 6391.33 million as compared to 8922.08. The breakup of which is marketing 4062.61 as compared to 6463.57 last year. E-commerce 2212.36 as compared to 2019.99 last year, and others 116.36 as compared to 438.52 last year. EBITDA pre-provisioning is 3739.17 as compared to 2303.72. Provisions and write-offs, last year it was 713.90, this year 2498.65. Profit before tax 1146.81, last year it was 1294.91, little down by only 11%. And PAT, it is 1010.70 as compared to 752.03, growth of 34.40 as compared to last year. And naturally, earning per share is 14.36 as compared to 10.68, that is a growth of 34.50. And the cash profit 3534.17 as compared to 1486.28 of last year. And if we go to the segmental reporting of standalone, it is total revenue of 6391.33 as compared to 8922.08, and the revenue of e-commerce is 221.06 2212.36 as compared to 2019.99. That is e-auction e-sales comes to 1952.50 as compared to 1660.83 last year. E-procurement 75.28 as compared to 170.60 last year. And other income remains almost on the same level, 188.53 184.58 as compared to 188.53 last year. In the revenue segment of marketing, it is down by 37% from 6463.57 to 4062.61, and the expenses are also down from 7627.17 to 5244.52. PBT comes to 1146.81 as compared to 1294.91, and PAT comes to 1010.70 as compared to 752.02 last year. And if we go to the consolidated financials, so it remains the total revenue is 9940.79 and as compared to 12959.98. Marketing is down by 37% from 6463.57 to 4062.61. E-commerce is higher from 2019.72 to 2212.16, and the scrap recovery and allied jobs. It is basically the segment of our 100% subsidiary company, Ferro Scrap Nigam Limited. It is little bit down from 4098.87 to 3649.68, and others are down from 377.82 to 116.34. EBITDA is higher by 43% to 882.17 as to 4137.67. Of course, it is pre-provisioning. Provisioning and write-off 761, it is 2520.59 as compared to 761.35 last year. PBT on the consolidated basis is 1358.84 as compared to 1667.43, and profit after tax on the consolidated basis is 1129.59 as compared to 970.14 last year, and on the consolidated basis the EPS is 16.05 as compared to 13.78, and the cash profit is 36.95 as compared to 1897.64. And if we go to the summary financials, first to start with standalone. Revenue from operation is 4277.45 as compared to 8307.08. Other incomes are 2113.88 as compared to 615 last year. Expenses, purchases and other consumable stocks and spares, it is 1746.07 as compared to 5663.12 last year. Employee benefit 677.58 as compared to 711.54. Finance cost is 68.90 as compared to 274.56. Depreciation and amortization expenses, it is almost on the same level from 24.81 from 20.35. Provisions and write-offs 2498.65 as compared to 713.90. Other expenses are 228.51 as compared to 243.70, and PBT is 1146.81 as compared to 1294.91, and after the tax is 1010.70 as compared to 752.03, and on the consolidated basis the revenue is 7804.66 as compared to 12313.99. Other incomes are 2136.13 as compared to 645.99. Purchases and etc. allied expenses are 2177.46 as compared to 6151.98. Employee benefit expenses are 1733.93 as compared to 1828.05. Finance cost down from 287.22 to 71.46. Depreciation amortization expenses are down from up from 166.15 to 186.78. Provisions and write-off 2520.59 and 76 as compared to 761.35 last year. Other expenses are 1883.13 as compared to 2070.86 last year. And PBT on the consolidated basis is 1358.84 as compared to 1667.43, and PAT is 1.29.59 as compared to 970.14 last year. And if we go to the consolidated asset basis, total assets are 224477.61 as compared to 22011.50, and total liabilities on the same side, and the total equity on the consolidated basis has come up from 4755 come up to 5579.53 as compared to 4739.22 the last year. This is all from our side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Nisarg Vakharia from Lucky Investment Managers. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I had 2 specific questions. My first question was that in the e-commerce business, we have generally seen a range of between 55 and 65 crores in revenue, and we have done about 85 crores in this quarter. So, is there any one-off?
Can you louder, sir?
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yeah.
I am saying in the e-commerce business, generally our range has been between 55 and 65 crore top line. In this quarter, we have done 85 crores. Have we executed any one-off orders in this quarter, which is why it's higher, or this is the new normal steady state run rate that we can assume per quarter for the e-commerce business? This is my first question.
Do I answer this, or do you have other questions?
No, ma'am, you can answer this, then I'll come to my next question.
Okay. Basically, what happens is in every year, the last quarter is probably the best performing quarter. This
Right.
year also the same trend has happened. But this year, what has happened is in the first quarter, the business wasn't really robust. In fact, we couldn't carry out much business. As you all know, our major earner is the scrap business. So most of the scrap sales, there were 2 factors actually that led to this growth in Q4. First is the scrap business. Most of the material that was shifted from first and second quarter that got sold in the last quarter.
Right.
Second was prices as such of scrap has gone up by almost 15 to 20%. So our revenue model is more on a percentage basis. So when the scrap prices are high, then the revenue is also better.
Got it. Okay, great. Second question was that in this quarter, we have seen a 200 crore rupees provision, and we have seen a 200 crore rupees write back.
Yeah.
So can you please enlighten us more on that?
Mr. Subrata will just tell you.
Sir, the basic point is like that. In this we had written off 180 crores of provision that were made earlier. So it was a both-way book entry. Just to one is the bad debt written off, and another is the provision no longer required written back. So it has got no effect so on the overall profitability of the company. It's 180 crore is around the bad debt that we have written off. Both in the income side and in the expenses side, both ways it is appearing. It has got no. Again, I repeat, it has got no bearing so far in the directly on the profit of the company.
Okay. Now, safe to assume, sir, that this is the last year of seeing these provisions and write-backs and all those things, and from next year it will be a pure e-commerce driven company?
Basically, what we used to tell from the right to one, around, if you can recall, you used to tell that it is around 120 plus, 130 plus of our sticky data trade receivables in the cash and carry segment. You can recall the earlier transcript call of
Yes. Yes.
Gradually, we have got a provisioning policy in our place. We are realizing a little bit of money out of that also, that segment also. But for the conservative approach, we are making certain provisions also. So, what we can say that around 47 to 48 crores of another that balance of that risky segment is lying still in this our trade receivable part. So that is the only vulnerable segment that we can foresee at this juncture. Gradually, the policy matter, it will be, if not realized, it will be taken care of in the financial.
Got it. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dixit Doshi from Whitestone Financial Services. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Just continue with the first question, the previous participant. You mentioned that 180 crore of same accounting entry is there in other income and other expenses as well. Because I assume that when you are booking in other income, the provision written back, it means you must have provided that in the earlier years.
Absolutely right, sir. Absolutely right. It was the provision earlier year, since it has got no effect on the profitability so far in the current year.
Yeah. So that 180 crore in the other income is the provision write back which we must have provided in the earlier year. And then this 215 crore of provisions in other expenses, then that must be the new provisions, right?
So this year, two things. Bad debt written off 180, both sides. Okay? What's the point? Both sides. Provision no longer written back and bad debt written off. So you have to minus this. Balance is the fresh provisions of current year.
No, the 180 crore in other income must be of some earlier, let's say XYZ account which you provided and got written back. Yeah, and then 215 crore, there must be not, that account will not be there in the other expenses, because you can't write off right now and write back right now. That's what
this is just a book entry. We are writing back the provision and making back debt. We are declaring that 180 crore as a bad debt. So not to affect our books of accounts on the profitability, provisions are written back and bad debts are done in the books. That's it. It has got no bearing on the profitability of the company.
Okay. Now, over and above, so if I exclude 180 crore, the above another 35 crore of provision, that must be purely from this account of which you are mentioning in the earlier calls, that there is one sticky account of 120 crore. So from that you...
Yeah, absolutely right. We have from the last quarter of December 19, we have formulated a provisioning policy, and gradually, as a conservative approach, we are making provisions in a staggered manner, so that it is another what I really just now explained, around 47 to 48, around 50 crores is still left behind. So this is in the sticky segment of the cash and carry, and which has since been discontinued from the financial year 1920. No further business is being done on this segment.
Okay, so now if I see the standalone balance sheet, the total receivables are around 723 crore rupees, right? So I assume that out of this, some will be of e-commerce, and whatever would be the marketing receivables, only 50 crore is risky, and rest are either 110% of bank guarantee kind of receivables, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Either 110% bank guarantee, or in the associate model, which is also as secure as it is, like a bank guarantee and e-commerce. So if you can run a conservative approach, 47 to 50 crores and is the in the sticky that is cash and carry data.
Okay. And now, in terms of marketing business, earlier calls you have mentioned that we are going to taper down, and there are some earlier agreements which we are actually executing, and no new business we are taking. So by when the marketing business will be completely out of the balance business?
As we were keeping on telling to the investors, our investors, like that tapering down of the marketing business, so that agreements are still certain supplies in the associate model. First of all, in the first step, we have stopped cash and carry business from 1920. So one segment gone. second segment in the associate model. So that supplies are continuing, and which is expected by that FY 21-22 there will be leftover supplies. So with that supplies, we hope that the associate model will be temporarily out of the picture. We hope. So we are making, because of the COVID and all, the supplies got delayed and everything. So now that things are in the full swing to FY 21-22. Now coming back to that segment of 110% BG. So of course in that also it is a very low volume that is going on. But as we have got a full security of that bank guarantee in our hand, so some stray businesses in the calibrated manner is that we are foreseeing. Of course, on receipt of the valid BG from the customers only, without which we will not do any kind of procurement or business in this segment.
But
and of course, that
completely exit the trading.
Not a big volume.
So you are saying that we will not completely 100% exiting the trading business. We will do.
It's almost on the way of the exiting the trading business. Almost exiting the trading business, because the cash and carry gone. The major volume comes from that you can see the revenues that is from the associate model. That will also be over by 21-22. So a very minuscule amount of this leftover of this 110% BG will be there, as it is backed by bank secured bank guarantees. So it is some kind of thing we are envisaging, but of course depending upon that availability of the valid BG and all, without which there will not a single business in the trading business.
Okay. Now, in terms of e-commerce, the ma'am said that, this quarter had some benefit of scrap business because the volumes were good and even the prices were up. So can you just break up the e-commerce revenue for this quarter in terms of, let's say, scrap sale and other kind of auctions?
It is there in our. Typically, you see, we are keeping on telling. Around 50% it comes from the scrap and allied scrap business. So almost the trend is continuing. Trend has nothing. The trend and the mix, product mix, almost remaining the same as in the earlier years. That is continuing. And it's
even in the Q4
that we are getting from a particular customer. It might be a scrap, and it might be some kind of e-sale also from that particular customer. So it's a composite type of revenue. But on a conservative estimate, on a just thumb rule, that we can say that around 50% of our e-commerce business is from that scrap segment.
No, the Q4 we have a very good jump in the e-commerce. So even in the Q4 it is around 50-55%?
No.
Which one?
Q4 e-commerce income is much more.
Much more.
No. I'm saying even the Q4 e-commerce business is substantially jumped. So even in Q4, the scrap sale is only 50-55%?
Well, as I explained you, it is on the thumb rule. It is generally the same trend. So it is, of course, the composition remains almost same, and of course, scrap has a major role to play, because as our Director Commercial Madam explained, because scrap prices has gone up, so it is contributing a big chunk, but almost product mix remaining the same.
Okay. And one last question from my side. So, in last con call, you have mentioned that, we are planning to start iron ore auction for JSW Steel. So, have we started that? And if you can just, elaborate the opportunity on the private sector, and what is the current mix of e-commerce from, let's say, revenue from government and private?
Yes, we did conduct a couple of events for JSW for sale of iron ore. But there were some teething problems, and right now the auctions are not happening. We hope that it will happen in anytime soon now from the private sector. Not just with JSW, we have pursued with other clients also. So this will be there, and the private sector contribution is more or less same as last year. About 90% of our income is coming from the government sector. The rest 10% is coming from the private sector. Private sector, actually, we have to think of, we are already introducing new revenue models because the way they work is quite different from the way government sector works. So they don't want many of the activities that we do for the government sector. So we are tapering down the services, but we are giving more value-added services in terms of, the price trend analysis and all those things. So the private sector volumes, it will definitely go up, but the revenue may not be commensurate to the volume. So finally what happens is when you come to the analysis of the revenue from e-commerce sector, it may remain at 90-10 for quite some time. Our focus is there on private sector. Let's see where it takes us.
Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Varun Goenka from Nippon India Asset Management Company. Please go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Is my voice clear?
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you may go ahead.
Right. So I had two questions. So one, some of the, coal block auctions or telecom auctions or some of the businesses probably non-recurring in nature. Could you help us understand the recurring part of the e-commerce business? What is probably the next 3-4 years? What kind of outlook? What are the possibilities? What are the growth opportunities do we have? And how do we understand that? So if you could help us just understand the recurring part and the non-recurring part.
You are absolutely right about this being non-repetitive, but the revenue from this stream is also not really considerable. In fact, for spectrum auctions, we did it just because it will give us a lot of mileage and confidence in taking over new challenging opportunities. The revenue was very minuscule.
Right.
Coal block, as I said, this is actually a very long-drawn process. Coal blocks, all the blocks don't get sold off in one particular year. So in the past we have sold some. This year there will be something, probably 1 or 2 more years it will continue. Similar is the nature of mineral blocks. But this has given us the opportunity to actually explore the volumes in the mineral sale. Now what happens is when coal blocks get sold, after about 2-3 years of operations, the mining activity starts, and then they have the mined coal. Now those companies, again, we approach them, and we are the chosen service provider for sale of that coal that is mined. So that is that is a very recurring activity. So we are in talks with a couple of companies who have started the mining activities from the coal blocks that were allotted in the previous tranches. Similar is the case with minerals also. So some of the iron ore that I was talking about, not just JSW, other companies also, the blocks that they have got in the previous year, once they start the mining activities, then we are the chosen service provider for sale of such minerals, coal, all kinds of produce that's coming out. So that gives us an opportunity. So we should not be thinking that this is not repetitive. So maybe after a couple of years the revenues may not be coming from this sector, but it is giving us new opportunity in that sector.
Right. And about the recurring part,
yeah.
How do we understand that? How do we grow that?
E-sale part, actually, if you see the lot of minerals, coal, iron ore that we are selling, these are recurring and these have been with us for more than a decade now. And the volumes have just been ever increasing in that segment. So that is recurring. So the scrap business is recurring. The e-sale business is recurring. E-sale, out of which certain portion where we are selling the blocks, that may not be recurring, but the revenue stream from that is not very considerable. So we should not really worry about, once the blocks are away, then maybe we will not be getting something. As I said in my opening statement, we talked of liquor licenses. So that's a new opportunity that we got. And this happens every year. One tranche of events happens every year in one state itself. If we could get this kind of appreciation, then we have so many states. So we are going to expand in that sector also. So if you actually see, one is growth as such in the recurring sector. Second is there will always be one, but as I said, once we perform well, then everybody keeps coming for either the same business or for some other business. The client is the so you can't actually say that it's not recurring. The client is recurring, right?
Right. Sure. Okay. And just to cover this up better, on the balance sheet side, post this trading business going off in the next 1 year odd, what is the kind of capital do we need to grow our business? What is the kind of investments we've done on our team side or on our marketing or sales side? If we can have some kind of a view on both the sides. One is the balance sheet. What will be our balance sheet looking like? And second, on our team.
The basic, you have put a very question, fundamental question. Going by the trend that we are now moving towards, so balance sheet will be little bit trimmer because, you will have a thin amount of very, very slim these trade receivables. And so far there will be, of course, payables will be also going down. And of course, we are now almost a debt-free company. So basically, it will be a very cozy type balance sheet with small trade receivables. Will be having cash and bank balances, and of course, in the so far investment that you can source. So our the management is thinking in that particular region, and as already we have told earlier also. So far overheads are concerned, the company is a very having a very, very lean manpower. So we are having a very low overhead cost. And of course, going forward, it will be an investment in the e-commerce segment only, and in the technology and knowledge enhancement. These are the envisaged. Of course, it will be the investment and the growth oriented by the e-commerce. So far, that is the vision of our company right now.
Okay. So on the balance sheet side, just to clarify, how much we will be retaining and what is the kind of payout ratio that we are seeing eventually when we...
very difficult to say in envisage right now. We are on a transition phase. So hopefully in the next year, hopefully I will be able to throw more light. So we are trying to just on the see that by 21-22 measure our trading orders and all these things which are on our book that is been completed and revenues are realized, trade receivables are realized. Then we will be in a position to just to recap and do the recalculation. So hopefully by 22 we will be in a position to show some kind of thing that how the balance sheet will future balance sheet will be looking like. But of course it will be the philosophy that like that it will be e-commerce oriented growth and e-commerce oriented balance sheet.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll come back in the queue for more.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pritesh Chheda from Lucky Investment Managers. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have two questions. One, what is the nature of these other financial liabilities which is there in the consolidated balance sheet of 800 crore plus? And what will be your gross debt and net debt? How should we look at it in your balance sheet?
As earlier I have just now answering the question of other investors, esteemed investors, like that we are right now almost a debt-free company. So coming forward, this idea is like to do not have any fund-based right now requirement of the company because we have got enough cash sitting in our kitty. So there may be some kind of non-fund-based if we require. But so almost the debt-free type projection right now. Second, on this
no, sir. So almost debt-free in sense, should we consider this 900 crore other financial liability plus one? So it's a borrowing that is there on your balance sheet is my question. So it looks like...
No. I'm answering you one by one. Debt part, okay. Now I am coming to the other financial liability. Let me answer that. So other financial liabilities are basically some kind of this cashes that is they are coming routed through our portal for material value and etc. So that is lying in the transaction little bit amount. So it will almost looking like it will keep on fluctuating on year-to-year basis, and the model that we are following. So other financial liabilities are in nature of that only. It is basically that money that is routed through our through material value of our principal and etc. etc. It keeps on daily basis, comes and goes like a negative.
Oh, sir, I am unable to understand. Is it debt or it is not debt?
It is not a debt. It is not a debt at all.
It is not a debt.
It is not a debt. Whatever debt that
is it a kind of payable for us? Sorry?
For a debt, we have to classify it as a debt. We have to classify it as a borrowing. It is not a debt at all. It is a financial liability. That means some kind of money, some material value that is passed through our portal that is lying on the any closing date that is lying there only.
Okay. And what is the gross?
Again, it is not a borrowing. It will be very specific, not a borrowing.
Okay. And so your gross debt in your balance sheet is about 150 crores is what I see at the end of March 21, right?
Yes.
And your cash is 750 crores.
Yeah.
Okay. My second question is, sir, we would have started gaining from the scrap recovery prices in our top line numbers. So is it fair to assume that until the scrap recovery prices sustained at a higher level, what we delivered as e-com revenues in Q4 are basically sustainable numbers? Because if half of your revenue is scrap, and if scrap is up 20%, automatically, or 25%, whatever be the number, automatically you start into a revenue growth mode. Is that assumption correct?
Basically, let me explain you in a very lucid manner. This mathematics, basically scrap market still in India, still it is not that organized. Still it is in that way. It does not work in that mathematical model in the right way. The prices going up, that has to be some disposable scrap at their scrap yard also. So Q4 growth was basically driven by two factors. One was the price. Second, there was some disposable stock of scrap lying at their pithead. So because there was no movement of the scrap in the first day and the second quarter, so that shifted to that fourth quarter. So it does not go in that particular mathematical fashion like that. The 20% scrap grows up and the revenue also grows up. Not that. There has to be a material in the stockyard also, like the generation of the scrap and of the party to realize that scrap also, value of the scrap. So a lot of factors work on this particular model. So that is the basic. But the past trend, you can see that trend, but we can sustain this thing, hopefully.
Understand the last statement.
Pardon?
I said I couldn't understand the last statement. You could sustain what, sir?
Just a minute. Our director commercial will explain that.
What I said was the scrap is a business that we have been doing for more than 30 years now. So based on the volumes in the recent years, we are hopeful that this will sustain for a few years ahead. And if the prices go up, then yes, that will be double bonanza, and we'll have increased volumes as well as the prices will firm up.
You think volumes will sustain, but there is every reason there also to believe, since the market is unorganized and we are penetrating in the private names by virtue of the deals that you had announced of Reliance and Larsen and all. There is reason to believe that even volumes will go higher, right?
I am able to say that the growth trajectory will be maintained. It doesn't actually go in a very exponential manner. We have seen that the growth in the volume of scrap has been in a very, very it's a very slow kind of moving item. Some years there will be some major plants that will be coming up for disposal. There is always, new plants coming up in place of old ones. Then maintenance work keeps happening. And now with newer modern technology, these plants and these things are more efficient. So the kind of sales that may be there after a few years, we can't expect right now. But at least in the coming years, in the near future, this kind of growth can be expected.
Okay, ma'am. This was very helpful. Yeah, ma'am, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dipen Shah, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity, ma'am. I had a couple of questions. On the e-commerce front, yeah, we have got a good amount of visibility as far as the revenues are concerned. If you look at in the current quarter, the revenue, the margins which we have made from the e-commerce business are almost similar to the revenues. So maybe there is an accounting issue there. But on an annual basis, we actually understand there is a 75 crore employee cost for the company on the e-commerce business. And there is another about 25 crores. So about 100 crores will be the expenditure for the e-commerce business on an annual basis. Would that be a correct statement to make?
Yeah, you have been keeping on telling that our overhead, salary and overhead hovers around 100. This year also, it was around 69 to 70. Let us take a very rough estimate at 70 crores. 70 plus 20. So between 90 to 100 at this particular level, the operate at this trajectory. So 100, maximum 100 crores of salary and overhead will be sufficient to sustain this type of volume level.
And sir, should we assume that any increase in the revenue, say this year we made about 220 crores of e-com revenues, if it goes to 250 or just for argument's sake in the next year, should a lot of that additional 30 crores flow to the bottom line, sir?
So almost most of that, because at this plus minus 10% trajectory, we will be having the same kind of overhead. We can the trend that we can observe from the past.
Second question is, sir, about the IPO of the subsidiary company. Any further updates which we can get, or maybe some more color on that?
IPO, there was no IPO so far. Yes, that there was no IPO planned for this our 100% subsidiary company, Ferroscrap Nigam Limited. You can, of course, there was a plan for yes. So as and when that the developments will be there, it will be in the public domain, and it is, of course, the basic thing is like that. It is as per the policy of Government of India. So whenever they will decide, and it is being dealt by DIPAM, Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, whenever they will decide and whatever they decide, it will be available in the public domain, and you will be suitably informed from that public domain only what is going to happen. So it is solely and wholly the policy of Government of India what will happen to that company.
Sure, sir. Yeah, thank you very much and all the best, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rikin Gopani from Capricorn Research. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just had one question, which was a clarification to the comment about the e-commerce business. Ma'am, just in the previous answer mentioned that there is good visibility that the e-commerce business growth should sustain. So just more clarity here. So are we saying that despite the fact that Q4 had a higher scrap volume, the run rate should be closer to the Q4, or are we saying that the growth will be similar to the 10% that we saw in e-commerce in FY21? What is the comment? How should I sort of read into the comment?
See, Q4 should not be seen in isolation. What has happened is in Q1 and Q2 there was a lot of volume that actually could not be transacted. So all that got pushed to Q4. So that is more like an aberration. We can't say that is going to be the future in every quarter from here onwards. So
Okay.
on an average, as we have been saying in the past, 10 to 15% is the bottom line e-commerce revenue is what we can expect to happen. Unless there is an exponential growth in the volume and sales, and we are able to penetrate more markets in a very drastic way. Of course, our efforts are there, but we have to see at the resources at our disposal and all those things before we take a plunge into a bigger growth trajectory. So Q4 is more it is pushed from Q1 and Q2, and that's why the very good growth. Going forward, we can even expect about 10 to 15% growth, as has been happening in the past few years.
Right. Just one follow-up to that is, given the fact that in FY21 the base got impacted because the first half was relatively weak, will the growth rate therefore be relatively better in FY22 given the low base?
See, 21-22, we are not going to make any more predictions with this pandemic. Whatever has happened in the last year, the second wave and all those things, we are just keeping our fingers crossed that we don't get affected. But we can't be making any predictions for this year or onwards. We are a little pessimistic in this area.
Got it. So if you could just give one clarification, which is in the Q4 FY revenues for e-commerce, if you were to normalize it for the higher volumes because of the past, would you be sort of able to give some clarity on that? What would be the normalized number looking like?
As I said, see, the scrap prices increased by about 15% or so, and 50% of our income, e-commerce revenue, is coming from scrap. So you can yourself do this arithmetic.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much, ma'am. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jehen Das from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Yeah. If we compare MSTC e-commerce offerings with the government's e-marketplace portal, so what are the overlapping areas between both the portals, and what kind of revenue comes from of MSTC revenue comes from these overlapping segments? Thank you.
Yes, I think we had answered this question in the past, and as you can see in the results also, e-procurement is the area in which the government e-marketplace operates. They are here to provide the e-procurement platform and e-procurement services for common goods and services. So if we actually analyze the e-commerce revenue, there has been a degrowth in the e-procurement from about 17 crores to just about 7.5 crores. This is mainly on account of two factors. One is the GEM, and the other one is actually we used to conduct many events as a transaction advisor for imported coal for certain power utilities in the country. So that did not happen because there is so much emphasis on using the domestic coal only. So the import of coal was considerably reduced last year, and such events didn't happen. So in the e-procurement segment, this is so basically the degrowth in e-procurement is mainly because of GEM as well as the slide in business of imported coal. Government e-marketplace is, yes, definitely a threat as far as the common goods and services are concerned. But as I have been saying in the past, MSTC operates in a very niche area, and a portal may not be able to cater to the requirements of all the buying requirements of all the government organizations and, of course, even the private sector. So that is where we come into picture. We offer customized solutions. So there is a threat from GEM, especially in the e-procurement segment, but we are taking up this challenge through our different offerings to our clients.
So, you said that the e-procurement revenues have come down to less than 10 crores. So, going forward, that shouldn't be a big threat, right?
Yeah, but GEM is a threat because the government has been pushing for usage of that portal, and obviously many of our clients for the common goods and services have already migrated or in the process of migration. So there can be a little reduction further in the e-procurement segment because of the migration to GEM. But we expect to compensate that by giving customized solutions and other offerings to our clients. So, your question was
earlier referred
which sector GEM is a threat. So I would like to
which are the
clear
overlap.
that it is basically operating in the e-procurement sector.
Okay, and ma'am, these other segments where we are dominant of scrap metal and coal, iron ore, those should not have any impact.
So as far as scrap is concerned, see, we have about 30-40 years of experience. The kind of services that we offer is unmatched. And that is why, a lot of our private sector clients, they have also, have given the trust, and they have given us the work for scrap disposal. So that gives us some confidence in scrap segment. But for others, as I said, our e-commerce trajectory, our e-commerce performance has been quite good. And we hope that it will continue at least in the short term.
Right. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashish Kacholia from Lucky Investments. Please go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am, would you like to share with us your progress on the automotive scrapping joint venture?
Which joint venture?
Scrapping.
The scrapping, the one with the Mahindras?
Yeah, that is, you can see from our financials also that we have now reduced the losses of that joint venture. It is working. It has got already 3 scrapping centers, one at Greater Noida, second at Chennai, third at Pune, and it is coming up with more scrapping centers. We are just waiting for that broader rules and guidelines from Government of India. Already there is a push for establishment of the scrapping center, so we are ready for that, absolutely ready for that challenge. And as soon as that the broader guidelines are there, we will be seen, we will be visible, quite visible, and we will be the front runners in this particular segment. And of course, we will have the first movers advantage in this segment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jeevan Batra from Candy Floss Investment. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So I just want to understand your again the same question asked by Ashish. So what is being any plan on how much you are going to invest in that joint venture, the scrapping Sero joint venture? How many? So the MD of Sero, Sumit Sir, has actually said in some interview that they are going to plan some 25 centers across the country.
Can you please repeat just?
So I'm saying, have you planned any investment in the scrapping joint venture with Mahindra? MD of Sero, the joint venture, has said in the interview that they are going to plan some 25 centers across the country. So is there any plan on how much MSTC is going to invest in that joint venture?
Just now answering the previous question, first of all, it is a 50-50 JV, so it will be an equal contribution from both the JV partners. So that part is very, very much clear. And the second part is like we are just waiting for the broader guidelines. So as soon as that broader guidelines are there, so we will now estimate, and accordingly we will plan our capex in that particular region. So until unless there is a broader guideline, so we are waiting for that. But it is for certain, again we are repeating, it is for certain, it will be of course very priority area so far MSTC is concerned, because it is another segment that we are eyeing for that. And of course, we will be going with that particular venture in a bigger way.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please limit your question to one per participant. Should you have a follow-up question, would request you to rejoin the queue. The next question is from the line of VP Rajesh from Banyan Capital. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Rajesh, but your voice is not audible, sir. It's breaking.
Is it better now? Hello?
Yes, sir. You may go ahead, sir.
Okay. My question was regarding what you answered on the other financial liabilities. Are you booking it on your balance sheet because you have the material, whether it is scrap or something else, in your custody, and that's why you have to write it in your books? If you can just give some more understanding on that entry, that will be helpful.
We as soon as it's a very typical accounting entry. As soon as suppose you receive 5 rupees if on your account or others account, you have to book it as a liability because you have to again pass it on to your principal. So it is a very simple accounting entry that we have to do it because we have to account for any amount that is coming into our balance sheet. We cannot keep off balance sheet items. So it is like very simple. Supposingly on our behalf of our principal, we receive 5 rupees from the customer. So till which is a transitional amount. So till I transfer it to my principal, which is on the regular basis. So it will be shown as a liability only towards my principal. So it's a very simple accounting entry. Nothing to do with the stock or some kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The last question is from the line of Varun Goenka from Nippon India Asset Management Company. Please go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to understand the payments opportunity from you, sir. If we're handling such large volume of goods and services, who handles the payments and the payment gateway related?
I could not get your question. Sir. Please, can you repeat, sir?
So we get our services from the auctions, etc. or provide. So the customer who handles the payments chain in that? If a customer is making the payment for purchase or service, who handles the payment gateway and the payments for that?
Our bankers, we have got a consortium of bankers. They handle them. Right. We have got Punjab National Bank, we have got State Bank of India, we have got IndusInd Bank. So they handle this total payment chain. So we are totally dependent upon our associate banks who handle all these things.
Right, I get it. So why don't we have our own payment gateway or payment services?
So it's a very regulatory thing. It's a very regulatory thing. It involves a lot of guidelines and RBIs and all stipulations. So it is a matter of policy decision. So it has to be decided by Government of India. It's a Government of India company. So it is decided by the government only. So as of now, the situation is like that. We depend upon the RBI scheduled banks and the bankers are handling it in a very efficient manner.
Right. And just about on the services side, since we keep saying e-commerce company, are we going behind any kind of government services like e-procurement, like you're saying, is growing and the government is focused on growing that? But beyond scrappage, mining, are we going behind any kind of a services opportunity, either government or private?
Repeat your question. Your voice is breaking. Are you talking about handling the volumes in various sectors?
I'm so sorry. There's a lot of breeze around. What I meant to ask was, since we're handling a lot of metals, mining, scrappage related, are we going behind any kind of services opportunity?
What we are offering is actually services only. Are you actually asking about the other allied services in these sectors?
Yeah, but I'm saying beyond the industrial or mining sectors, and beyond one-time opportunities like telecom auctions, are we are we really addressing any kind of a services opportunity, which could be related to marketplace or payments or any kind of consumer services?
So you're basically talking of value-added services apart from the e-commerce services, platform services that we are providing. So in this direction, actually, we had been talking in the past also that, we have our eye on the agro sector and expansion of our presence there. So towards this end, we have, associated with certain logistics partners. But then as, the penetration has to be very, very high. We need a lot of associates and other, peripheral activities to be carried out. So it is a very promising area, but then it is not so easy. You can't expect into this area overnight. So it's a very slow process, and we are in this process of associating with various logistic service providers, last mile connectivities, and handling of packaging, and all those things are there for B2C customers. We had said in the past that we are also addressing the B2C customers because our presence more or less has been in B2B so far, B2B and G2B.
Right. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I would now like to hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
So I thank all the investors who were on call today and with whom we have interacted in the past. The kind of confidence, the kind of questions that they had been asking actually, gives us insights into what can be done, what is our role, and what is expected of us. So I'm really happy that people have been following us so closely, and we are just hoping that this pandemic thing is over and we are back to business full-fledged, and we are able to, repeat the performances that we have shown in 2021 and in probably much better way. And with that, I really thank Equirus as well as all the investors for joining this call. Have a nice day.
Thank you. On behalf of Equirus Securities, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.
Thank you.